Don't show self-control.
Okay, here we go. So welcome everybody. The usual thing, we'll wait until everybody starts joining, until we get going, and say hello to all our regulars. We've got a few guests with me today, just about everybody. There's Hugh, and Katy, and Jim. And we'll do reintroductions in a little bit as well, because it's always a little slow just while people start to join the actual live stream itself. Do let us know who's watching, and all the regulars and where you're from. It's always good to know. And we've obviously got this absolutely fantastic treat for you guys today, being able to ring the barn owl chicks that we are super excited to have had this year. It's the first year of them breeding here at Mount Stewart. So I'm super excited. Are you guys excited?
Yeah.
So we've got a few caveats just to go over at the start. So one of the clear things we need to do first, Katy, come up a bit closer because you'll be speaking this. So Katy's the project officer for Barn Owls NI. She works for Ulster Wildlife, so this has been a partnership project right the way through and across the whole of Northern Ireland. Yep. And we'll have a chat about some more of that as we go forwards. But the big thing we want to caveat here is that all this is being done under licence. Barn owls are a protected species, as are all nesting birds. So there's various laws and protections that are in place to make sure that they are safe. So do not go and do any of this, even if you think or suspect there's one in a tree hollow or you've got your own barn owl nest perhaps. It must be done by licensed professionals who are trained and all the rest of it. And that's what Jim and Hugh are. They're licensed Schedule 1 bird ringers, and of course we have the license to film and operate.
Yep, I have my license to be here.
So that's one of the formalities out the way first. The other thing is probably just talking about the realities of what we're doing here. So the birds come first in terms of what we're doing. So if there is an issue while we're doing this, we want to make sure it's as smooth and as least stressful as possible, and we'll talk you guys through the process of what's happening. But if there may be a point that I and Katy will just need to put the camera down for a bit to help out with something because the birds comes first. So hopefully that'll be okay with you guys, and do get questions coming in. We'll probably answer quite a lot of these in the first little setup, and we'll be able to pick up some questions through the process and then at the end as well. So I'm just going to bring up the comments here. We've got quite a few people joined already. So we've got Jane, good morning. Jackie, good morning. Elizabeth, good morning. Leslie, good morning. Leslie's one of our top photographers now. You probably know Leslie Barker. Yeah, there we go. Hi, Leslie. Yeah, great red squirrel pictures. And you've been here back at Mount Stewart for I think it was just earlier on in the week. Got some lovely shots of the cygnets on the lake as well. So they were lovely, Leslie. Thanks for joining. Jane Brown, hello. Jackie. We've got Louise, Helen, Paul, hi. Alison, hi. So we've got quite a few of the regulars there. So we'll be getting going in a minute, but I think the best thing to do is just sort of have a quick chat and properly introduce everybody. Now we've got most of our viewers live. So Katy, work away, introduce yourself.
Hello. I'm Katy Bell, Senior Conservation Officer for Ulster Wildlife. So I took over in October, so I now manage the barn owl work and the red squirrel work, and a few other random things, working on bugs and stuff as well. Varied. So yes, we've been doing this since October, so this is the first real kind of nesting season that I've been working on. It's very exciting. We are having a positive year. I think all this good weather, it's been great.
Great nighttime flight times, so not a huge amount of rain,
which has been fab. It's not been great for some other species, but owls are doing really well this year, which is very, very good.
Certainly works in the short term. Of course, the main thing now is we do need some of that wet weather coming up soon. To obviously the plant life is starting to sort of wilt a little bit, and then that has its knock-on effect on all the insects, which are the food source of the mammals and the plants and all the way up the food chain. So we'll just introduce the others here as well. So we'll go for Hugh first because he's the top man. So he's the lead ranger with the Natural Trust Strangford team, and he's been in the game for 28 years. Is it? I can't remember.
I worked for the trust for 30.
30.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
But
and he's been working on.
Looks like 40.
Yeah. He's been working on one of the longest data sets for nesting birds on Strangford Lough that exists, I think. But certainly within Europe, I think, is it?
Well, it's certainly 51 years of turn monitoring, but I haven't been here the whole time.
Yeah.
But I've been here around since 2001, and I used to help Davy Andrews, the late Davy Andrews, in the 90s a little bit with the sandwich turn. So So ringing is, I'm lucky enough to be able to do some ringing within my job. So the summer turn ringing is part of day job. But the rest of my ringing would be just in my own time. But recent years, I've rarely focused on seabird pulley and the odd opportunistic raptor, then this would fall into that bracket. Yeah.
So it's a personal nice tick to
Yeah.
do
Oh yeah.
today,
And I did way back in 1985. My honour thesis was on barn owls, so it's quite nice to reacquaint myself with barn owls again.
It's great, and I'm really excited because, of course, this is the fruition in a really short space of time that this particular box has only been up 2 years. So some of our regular viewers will know the story behind the chicks here. Is the project box went up a while ago. We've had barn owls here at Mount Stewart and in the surrounding area for quite a long time. The key thing here, and this is probably, I'm going to introduce you in a minute. the key thing here, just to sort of bring Katy in again as well, is overall habitat loss is the main factor for the decline of barn owls, and it's a 2-factor thing. So we're talking food source, so good hunting grounds, and then of course the actual roost and nesting sites. So part of the initial project initially was recognising places that had good habitat and barn owls already, and making sure that we got the breeding and nesting.
Yeah. So we would put up. Yeah, you're right. So habitat is vital, I suppose. So there's a lot of different things the project's done, and one of those is areas where habitat's perfect and barn owls have been hunting is to make sure there's a nesting place for them. So that's putting up boxes. So that is still a part of our work, what we're doing. So this box is obviously being used because we're surrounded by really good habitat, which is perfect, and there's a good supply of rodents here for barn owls to hunt, and that's really what they need.
Yeah. So one of the big takeaways for you guys watching is that data on and sightings of barn owls and pretty much species in general is half of the battle of understanding how we can help all these declining species. So we'll make sure we put all the relevant sort of links in terms of how you can help out with sightings and what you can do. And if you're a landowner that already has barn owls on their site, please get in touch. Yeah. We'll make sure we put all those links in the comments after the live stream, because trying to type and film at the same time is a bit of a nightmare, and I can't actually remember the link offhand, but if you can remember it, it's ultrawildlife.org.
Yeah, our website. Check out our website.
But we'll make sure we put the direct links in there for you as well. So we'll just introduce Jim as well. So introduce yourself, Jim. What's the crack with yourself?
Hello everybody, I'm Jim McNair. I'm retired from full-time work, but I've become a volunteer with the Strangford Lough team. I'm also a trainee ringer, so I'm not licensed to ring, so Hugh's in charge of that, and it's a privilege to be here to work with barn owls and to see how that ringing and those processes go.
That's quite an interesting thing as well, is to become a ringer you have to do lots of training with other ringers as well, so it's kind of like flight almost, like learning to be a pilot.
It's training, experience, assessment, reassessment sometimes, and it's quite a long process, but it's about getting out into the habitats and seeing how things are done and learning from experienced people. Yeah,
no, that's great. So I suppose without further ado, we're going to start the process. So I'm going to swap the camera around here, if I can. There we go. And so we've been standing just away from the box itself at the moment, which is just up here. Like I say, we don't broadcast the locations of the boxes for obvious reasons. And of course, if you do see boxes out and about on your walks, please just keep your distance from them, because they may be occupied. Obviously, barn owls are a nocturnal animal, so they'll hunt by night and they sleep by day. So if you don't like getting disturbed at night, barn owls don't get like being disturbed at day. So the guys here are just going to start extracting. So I mean, I'm going to swap sides, Katy, because the microphone's on the right hand side.
I'll just say as well, the adults aren't in here, so these ticks are quite old, so we're not actually disturbing the adults. There's a network of boxes around here. Those adults are in another box chilling out, so we're not disturbing them at all.
Yeah, I should probably say that as well. So the previous little clips we've had from our trail cameras and the initial inspections, one is to confirm whether a breeding pair is in there, and that's done usually around February, March. And then we do a follow-up to find out when the adults have left. So as we were saying, they basically sit with the chicks and then it gets a bit too crowded in there, basically.
Yeah, they're big now.
and they need their rest after hunting all night as well.
Yeah.
So we're pretty sure that certainly one of the adults, if not both of them, are possibly roosting in one of the other box sites, which we're going to do our checks on this afternoon. but we know that they left about 2 weeks ago at least, because that follow-up inspection, and you guys saw the footage of the 4 chicks, because we originally thought it was 3. So to have a 4th was a real surprise. And that leads us nicely on to the realities of obviously nature and wildlife, is there may not be 4 in there still. We know the pine martins had a visit to this site in the fire, and was well fought off by the chicks and the parents. And of course, you know, that's a natural occurrence. The pine martin's a native species, it's part of an ecological balance, but obviously, you know, we understand that it can be a little sore to see. Say, you know, we've got an endangered species being predated on by another endangered species. I'm gonna face you as well, just because it can be a little difficult to deal with. And I remember, I think it was one of the osprey nests in Scotland last year. Was predated upon, so you know it can be a little sore, but it's not the pine martin's fault. Pine martin have their place within the ecological systems.
I suppose are in recovery. They're naturally spreading on their own. We want to see them. You know, we know there are issues with them, but we know also that real positive effect they can have on our red squirrels. So that's a whole nother thing. But you know, it could be possibly in the winter when the birds have gone, we can make a decision whether we want to try and do some pine martin proofing down the bottom of the tree. That could be an option. But yeah, pine martins are just doing what they're doing basically.
So Hugh's just lifting the first chick out now. We can actually hear the hissing from here, so they make quite a scary hissing noise, don't they?
Yeah, so that's one of the signs. If you're near a box and you hear that, it's like a hissy snoring kind of, it's described as sound. It's very loud. And so yeah, if you ever hear that, you know there's chicks in there, so leave basically and let them be, but that's a good sign to look out for.
I think I've just heard Hugh say there are still 4 in there, which is brilliant, because what does happen sometimes is if there's a lean period, it's a survival of the fittest, and the parents will always feed the strongest, biggest chick, and ultimately the kind of the weedy of the runt either dies or quite often can get eaten by the other chicks.
Lovely. But yes, it's nature and that's what happens, and actually to have 4 healthy chicks is amazing.
So what's happened is Hugh has just put them all safely from the box into a low. Yep, 4, brilliant, thanks Hugh. He's just lowered them down, and they're going to get moved into a holding box, so it kind of feels like they're in their roost and nest the whole time. It helps keep stress levels down. And then what we'll be doing is they'll be coming over here, and we're going to keep our voices down a bit once they're over here a little bit. So hopefully you guys can hear us both, and I'm going to be sort of swinging the camera between who's speaking, so hopefully it picks it up. They're going to come down to the little ringing site, so all the kit is set up here, and they'll be basically lifted out from each box and held in a secure position, so that each of their legs can have their little tracking ring put on it. But Hugh and Jim will be able to talk through that process, because obviously they're the ones doing it and they know it way better than I do. But this has been a really good opportunity to be able to bring this to you guys, and we thought initially we might not be able to, but I think the benefits of being able to give you guys direct engagement into this conservation in action here. So data, like I said earlier on, is half of the battle in sort of working our way through how we can protect and increase and recover species like the barn owl. So being able to track where they move, their breeding, and Katy's just listening to the hissing there, like listen, is fantastic. Things. So I mean, just while that's taking place, we could probably talk red squirrels, because it's the same sort of as well. Yeah, red squirrels are awesome. So when it comes to red squirrels, obviously everybody will know that Mount Stewart's a stronghold, and the Arts Peninsula is as well. Katy also is involved in the Red Squirrels and I project, which it was a life fund originally, and it came to an end, but Ulster Wildlife have been able to keep on some dedicated staff related to it.
It was Red Squirrels United up until the end of October, and then it's myself and Michael Stinson, who's Red Squirrel Conservation Officer now, continuing that work. And hopefully we'll get more funding to keep it going. That was a great project. We want to keep the momentum going really of it. At the minute we're developing a red squirrel strategy for Northern Ireland, so we're trying to identify the areas, kind of key areas where grey squirrels are moving, and try and kind of see if we can join up areas with reds and that kind of thing. So it'll be more of a focus, and we'll plan kind of our actions for the future. So.
Yeah, and we're really pleased to be able to be partners in all of this that's happening, because basically nature doesn't know boundaries, fences, different organisations, and we all need to work together on these things. So it's been great to be able to do this today as a partnership broadcast, and live stream, and let alone the project itself. So we're watching here because the guys are just bringing them down one by one at the moment. So if you can just see, I'll just take a little closer look just so you can see, and then I'll step back. I'm going to have to just keep my voice down, but I'll speak close to the mic. So is that number 3 or 4 here?
2.
So this is number 2 that's come out so far. So like I say, they come down in the bag to keep them calm.
Just go down and do a conventional grip.
Okay. And then they'll get transferred across into the box. So obviously this is hard at the best of times. Trying to maintain social distance in doing this as well is a really important thing as well. So we've got some extra provisions in place with the likes of masks, and we've been readily sterilising ourselves all the way through this. So that's 2 in the box. And who's feisty? They're quite well developed.
Yeah, the youngest one, very passive. He didn't do anything. The other ones are stretching themselves up as tall as they can make themselves, so that they're pushing their legs down and trying to reach up as high as they can and hissing, and then they're going for you with their feet. But it's all right.
Yeah. I'm just going to step away here with the others. So in all of this, they're actually further on than we thought in terms of their development, because normally, Katy, you were saying earlier on this morning, actually some of the Scottish crews have been ringing from 3 weeks, was it?
3 weeks, yeah, but about 6 or 7s normally, but depends on the size. I suppose they develop at different ages, so they just need to be big enough to put the ring on, basically, so it won't fall off. And also, the older they are, the less risky it is. So you don't really want to be up disturbing them when they're small and fragile, but now they're big sturdy things, so the risk is much less, which is good.
Yeah. So Heather's just asking, gosh, they're quite big. How old are they? How old are they? Well, when I did the second inspection, I'd estimated about 7 weeks at that point. So
Might be
yeah,
like
so they're possibly 9 weeks at this point.
So close to fledging.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly 2 of them that we've seen so far are well on their way to developing their adult feathers, and we'll be able to take a closer look at them when they're actually being ringed. But like I say, for anyone who's just joining, the birds are the priority here, so I'm going to be stepping in and out just so we're minimising the amount of disturbance while they're out and being ringed themselves. So yeah, I'm going to take a chance just to go through a few of the questions. I'm going to look through the comments because I haven't had a chance. Yeah. But Katy, if you want to talk about something random for a minute. Something random. Tell us about perhaps the hunting or feeding habits of the barn owl, just while I'm looking through the questions.
Okay. Do you want me to look?
You can face the camera, then I can. There we go. Perfect.
So I suppose a lot of people, you hear a lot about barn owls being associated with voles, but we don't have voles in Northern Ireland. So across the water it makes up the majority of their food source, but because we don't have them here, it probably limits our population. That's probably one of the reasons as well. We don't have a huge population. So there are 3 main food sources here are wood mice, pygmy and young rats. So they make up their main diet. Wood mice really would probably be one of the main things they would hunt. And what they really need are kind of rough ground and kind of breaks in that ground. So they will roost in trees, but kind of at the edge of open ground, and they need areas where kind of rodents will break cover, and that's kind of where they'll hunt.
So Mount Stewart's perfect for that, because we've got basically big fringe set aside areas of fields. We have a mixed farming system with an arable cropping as part of the rotation. So yeah, and of course the big one here is like these guys here, big old trees with lots of cavities. But even still, with 600 acres of woodland here, there's still a lack of the actual good cavities and good nesting sites. So this is why that, just shows you 2 years up, adding the extra box has made all the difference to them.
They found it, which is amazing. And actually, when we're trying to find places, even to put up nesting boxes, it's hard to find big old mature trees, actually. There's a lack of them, and we need to be leaving trees, and we also need to be leaving dead trees. Yeah. Because barn owls are like little cracks in trees to kind of nest in as well.
I think just for a lot of our regular viewers will know that I wax lyrical constantly about standing deadwood and deadwood habitats.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's because it's so important to get those
Yeah,
mixed habitats,
definitely.
the high ones, the low ones. It's the base of the food chain for all those invertebrates. Their larvae will grow in them. We've got lots of deadwood stacks all through here. Even though this is part of a formalised avenue, we make sure you retain as much deadwood as possible, and ideally standing. And we know that in some of our trails and access points we can't always leave it standing right next to the trail for obvious reasons, but elsewhere we let it do its thing. So which is why when you come to Mount Stewart, you will see lots of dead trees, because it's really good.
It's good. I mean, they say a healthy woodland should be a third dead trees, which is crazy when you think of it. And I suppose we clear so much of it. And yeah, it's amazing for so many things. So yeah.
And Northern Ireland is well, Ireland as a whole is the island of Ireland is one of the least forested countries in Europe.
And
So
they
we're
like to
talking
be tidy.
we're talking less than 7% woodland cover, which is atrocious, to be honest. So I mean, even just to mention some of our other fellow environmental organisations, so the Woodland Trust operate, and they are all about obviously creating new woodland and making sure that any of those new creations are trying to be linked up. So there's a huge partnership network between ourselves as National Trust, the Wildlife Trusts, Woodland Trust, RSPB, so on, and of course lots of small organisations as well. So it's not just about working on our own land; it's also about outreach and making sure that we can do it. But with this in mind right now, and I'm just going to sort of just to face this all, is that under the current circumstances, significant, well, I say significant, huge amounts of all our incomes have been incredibly detrimental and sort of degraded over the last few weeks. So I obviously got some bad news yesterday that the first round of redundancies are taking place in National Trust, and it's a similar picture across quite a few of the other environmental organisations, which is a really sad thing to have to do. Now, obviously, we need to make sure that we're still here in the future, so tough decisions do have to be made. So if there's one thing that comes out of this today, is if you're a member that perhaps hasn't renewed your membership with any of the organisations, we're not talking just about us or just about us, but any environmental organisations, please do become a member. As our visiting increases to our sites, please do buy coffee, buy cakes. It all goes back into doing this sort of work. 100% of it goes back into looking after these places, making sure they're accessible to people so they can actually connect and experience them, but also to make sure that they are going to be there forever. So yeah, anyway, it was a bit of a sad moment yesterday, so as you can imagine, it was a bit of a downer, but to do this today is obviously a lot nicer. So we want to celebrate that this is really positive as well, but just wanted to say that.
Without funding
Yeah,
as well, so
and that is the reality. Unfortunately, money makes the world go round, and not to get too political, but there's not much political appetite to get things moving. So if you want to make a difference as well outside of being a member or joining these organisations to do the work, then write to your MLAs, write to your MPs, write to your local council to support a green recovery and sustainable future out of the current circumstances, definitely. So I'm picking up a few of those questions. The guys are just setting up for ringing here as well. There we go. We've got, so spin that through. Oh, we've got loads of people who have joined just while I've been talking about the things. There we go.
There's loads of pellets for you to analyse, Toby.
Oh, fantastic. Well,
You definitely want to do it.
to get some.
Katie's going to take some pellets. So maybe you want to do that while they're ringing, if you want to grab the pellets out.
Yeah.
Got a master's student doing some research on them.
Great, yeah.
So I'll do that while the birds are out
Yeah.
here.
We'll probably take a quick look at one of them as well, just to sort of see. So for anyone who's not familiar with the the anatomy of barn owls, they will eat their rodents whole. And what happens is they get sort of partially digested in the system, and the bones and the fur are coughed back up as an owl pellet. And so Katie's actually just going to grab a few of them out of the box so that we can have a look at them after as well. And then obviously the rest of the meats and the goodness of the food is digested through the bird themselves. But what's really useful for the pellets are a data source, obviously, as what they're feeding on, how much they're feeding on. We can obviously get DNA analysis from that sort of thing as well. So there's a few studies going on, and that's why we're collecting some of the pellets as well. So if you find or come across any pellets out and about on your walks in places, get in touch with ourselves or the Barn Owls and I project, and I'm sure they'd welcome little donations of the pellets. They're perfectly, you won't get catch anything from them or anything like that, but obviously best case scenarios is always wash your hands after handling them anyway. So Heather asks, we've got two Heathers here. So Heather Glasgow asks, how long do they usually live for? So Hugh, you might be best to answer that. Average barn owl life?
Oh, that's a
span?
good question. Don't actually know the answer to that.
It's tens of years, isn't it? I'm pretty sure.
I'd say Katy might know, but
lifespan of barn owls?
They don't live very long.
They're not. Oh, it's a bit short.
7, 8 years.
7 or 8 years,
good
yeah.
span for them.
Yeah.
I don't, because people will think that there've been barn owls coming for 20 years and it's the same barn owl, but over that 20 years that could be 5 different pairs.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't actually live that long.
Which is quite
which is another
interesting
issue, I
compared
suppose.
to other birds of prey, which have quite a long
Yeah.
lifespan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah,
Every day's a
we're
school day.
always
I think one of the roles of being a ranger, and I've probably said this before as well, is that you have to be sort of skilled at everything and master of none.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to sort of
Always
these.
learning new stuff
Yeah.
in these jobs, aren't you? You can never know everything about the environment.
So another question from the other Heather is how old are they before they start to leave their nest? I'll pick that one up in a minute.
So yeah, they're fine.
There we go. So there we go. So the ring is like a metal clasp that goes around the leg. It doesn't hurt them. It just sits loose on their legs, and it means that, of course, whenever camera traps are using or filming them, we can usually get an idea of whether it's ringed for a start. And when viewing nest sites through a telescope or viewing them perched, we can usually get the actual ring number from them. And of course, if you do find a barn owl or any ringed bird that has a ring on it, call in the ring number to BTO, so the British Trust for Ornithology is probably the best port of call, and they hold a database of all ringed birds. So this is where that data is going, and obviously to the Barn Owl Project as well.
Yeah, we'll find out from there as well.
So there we go.
Unfortunately, yeah, the only way we can, this ringing is really good, but the only way we can find out where they've gone is unfortunately if they're found dead. But it really is valuable information, and we'll know again if these turn up on a camera at another nest site, we'll know that they're ones that have been ringed from here, because actually quite often we're seeing unringed birds at boxes, and that means that they're new birds, so we can kind of roughly know that there's more out there, and it's not just these same birds moving around the place.
And that was one of the mysteries that we still haven't quite solved yet, is we know that the male dad from these chicks isn't ringed, but we weren't able to confirm whether the female was ringed or not. And there's a little mystery going on as to whether that's a female from a nearby nest site, or whether it's a brand new female.
A new one, we don't know. We don't actually know, but it's intriguing. So we'll maybe find out more once we get. That's what's really good about the remote cameras, because they can go up without disturbing the birds, and we can get information about when they're arriving and if they're ringed or not. Occasionally the adults are ringed if they're found somewhere, or for some reason we'll ring adults. We don't normally do it now just so we don't disturb them, you know. But yeah, if these chicks are ringed, and if any of these are found at any time, we'll know where they came from. We'll know they came from this nest.
So this might sound really morbid, but if you see birds washed up on a beach, for example, because a lot of the ringing studies are done on migrating seabirds, check the carcass just to see if there is a little ring. What we'll do is actually I might just quickly show you. This is what the rings look like. So obviously these are quite large rings for large neck birds, but there are smaller rings. You quite often see coloured rings as well. You see they each have a unique individual number on them, so that they're trackable. So yeah, if you ever find rings like this, they'll be fully clasped round, so they might come off a dead bird of any kind. Call it into the British Trust for Ornithology, so BTO. BTO.org, and report them in, because this is really vital data to retrieve the bird rings from all species.
primaries are quite significant.
So just join here.
Aren't they, than the greater coverts?
So this chick is well developed.
Yeah.
Oh, look at it, it's so cute. It's still so fluffy, but it's getting quite a lot of its adult feathers.
Yeah.
You can see all the lovely colour coming through.
So
Just trying
what
to give
he's
Hugh a
doing,
peck there.
he's checking. This is part of the sexing process as well. Do we know?
Yeah,
how it's developed.
the males after 30 days, you have a chance of sexing them even at this young age. And the things we're looking for is spotting or absence of spotting on the wing coverts, underwing coverts, and the contrast between the primaries and the greater coverts.
I mean, even in the adults, it's quite hard to tell.
Yeah. The whiter, the very white bird, a very white bird with no speckling is very likely to be a male.
A male,
Yeah.
and then more speckledy is a female, but
Yeah.
it's not always. You can't really
So
rely on that. So
Yeah, so there's contrast. There is marked contrast, isn't there, between the primaries and secondaries and the coverts, which is suggesting male from Baker. But we'll have a look at a couple of the others and see how they look as well. And then there's just a little bit of spotting quite high up though. Can you just take that thing away? It's got a fair bit of spotting there, and there's subtle spotting there on the underwing coverts there.
just beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a step back now,
Yeah.
just so they can finish
And
up.
they're incredibly light.
Very light birds. So we're talking what 400 grams?
Oh no, not much lighter than that.
Like 300 then maybe, yeah.
But I don't think there's not a lot of point in weighing them. If you can sex them according to weight, like peregrine chicks, fairly mature peregrine chicks, it's worth weighing them, and merlins, where you've got sexual dimorphism. Weighing a chick that's fairly well on can give you an indication of their sex. Barn owls, male and females, their biometrics are pretty similar, so that's not something that would give us a huge amount of biological information. So we'll put it back here, and we'll fish another one out.
So yeah, sorry Heather, just to pick up your other question, how old are they when they start to leave the nest? So I mean, we're estimating that these are possibly 9 weeks now. So they're at the stage they're going to start looking to stretch, and they'll be exercising, so they'll actually start to pop out. Yeah, it's very good. They'll start to pop out
First
sometimes.
flying, Toby, is 8 weeks, isn't it? 56 days. They seem to be very consistent.
Yeah, so I wonder, maybe these are slightly younger.
Yeah. I'm going to have to look at our camera data and the dates again, just and see because they seem to have developed very quickly in 2 weeks.
Really big, I know.
So must have the last check must have literally been just before they started to pop out the adult feathers. Yeah. I mean, this is fantastic. So yeah, I'm just pick up some of the other questions. Obviously, I'm sure you guys are asking loads of questions at the moment, and we'll be able to pick up a lot more of those as we go through here. We're obviously, like I say, the birds come first, so we need to make sure that we're documenting this as well for the records. And I'm sure we'll probably be putting out a little press release on this, won't we?
Yeah, we can try and get some, once we get pictures and things, we can put something out. Because it's great news.
So, we've answered that question. So how many chicks are in the box, Sheila asked? So this particular nest site has got 4. We originally thought it was 3, but we saw a 4th in there on the second inspection.
That's a very healthy brood, actually. 4 is a good number. We've had 5 before.
You're not looking for a double A.
But I mean, 4 basically is a good sign of good hunting habitat. You know, 1, 2, 3. 3 is probably about average. So 4 is really, really good.
Yeah.
And that is basically a big percentage of our known number of barn owls in the whole of Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
We have less than 30 pairs, so to have 4 chicks here is really, really good.
So just to re-emphasise that, so less than 30 pairs in Northern Ireland of barn owls. I mean, interesting enough, like European wide, they're I think this is it of least concern on the IUCN.
They're doing okay in some places. They're doing a lot better in the Republic of Ireland. But there's various reasons in different places of why they're doing better. They seem to congregate in areas, you know, there's certain parts of England where they're doing very well, you know, like Norfolk, for example, which is all arable and it's very flat. But here in Northern Ireland, it's just a different one. We have so much varied habitat here. Most of our population's congregated in the east, which is where it's kind of drier and arable. So it could be, the amount of rain we have could be actually a limiting factor. So we might not ever have had thousands of barn owls here anyway, but that doesn't mean that they haven't drastically declined.
And of course, a lot of the, you know, the original nesting habitat would have been lost in the mass oak clearances in the shipbuilding periods of time. Yeah.
And I mean, they're calling barn owls, but I mean, they existed long before barns existed. You know what I mean? People associate them with old buildings, but long before that, they would have been in trees. So that's their original kind of place. And yes, again, with all the redevelopment of buildings, there's not as many old buildings around. In the Republic of Ireland, one of the key places they nest in is old castles, which is hilarious. They're very fussy there. So they like fancy old buildings. Birdwatch Ireland do a lot of great work in the south, but we don't have as many of that here. So, and a lot of people will redevelop those old buildings without kind of thought about barn owls, and they're very loyal to a site. So for some reason, barn owl sites will have what they call kind of a general appeal. So if one barn owl likes it, another barn owl will like it. So if a site's been used for 20-30 years, barn owls will keep coming back to it, even if they're different birds.
I'm going to swap the camera around just so we can see, because I know trying to get the speech and everything at the same time. We're all good. So there we go. If I bring it around that way.
My mask.
Okay. So Ruby, who's 7 years old, wants to know how they swallow their meals whole, and Daisy, who's age 5, wants to know how do they see in the dark, and how do their wings make them fly. So, well, they're really, really good questions. I think the wings one, probably we'll start from the hunt stage. So being able to fly with absolutely zero noise is their strength, and that's how they're able to hunt in the first place. Maybe you want to pick up on some of that?
I mean, I suppose, we could all...
Do you want to have a look at their ear?
Right, we'll get back to those questions, guys.
Just, you know.
Oh, fab. So one of their ears is higher than the other. So one on one side it's higher, and the other side it's lower. And that's basically so they can basically hear direction, and it just makes them perfectly adapted.
So that means that they're able to basically pinpoint.
You can actually see, sorry, just while we're here, do you see this little edge here? So this is how they can hunt silently. So this little bit here, the air moves through it, and it means they're perfectly adapted. You wouldn't hear them coming, basically.
Yeah.
So guys, you
Can
might
you see the hairs on that, Toby? Yeah, it's like...
The resolution might not pick this up, but basically, if you can think like a comb, the outer edge of the wing is like a comb as opposed to the solid joined up strands of the feather, so it's able just to sort of basically minimise any turbulence while they fly. So that's how they're able to fly so quietly. As for seeing in the dark, well, they've got huge eyes.
Yeah. If you see the skull, the kind of areas where their eyes are just absolutely massive, and you can see their eyes are black as well. So that means that they hunt at night. So different species of owls will have different colours eyes, and that will actually tell you when they hunt. So some have kind of orangey eyes, they hunt in the day, or yellowy, they hunt in dusk and dawn. I might have got that the wrong way around. But yeah, theirs are totally black, which means they're perfectly adapted.
So if there are any like really knowledgeable people watching, bearing in mind that we're doing all this live.
Under pressure.
Yeah, so trying to remember everything off the top of the heads is quite difficult sometimes. So, and this is your first rodeo. We were joking about it earlier on, so you haven't done a live stream like this before, Katy. So
we're concentrating on trying to concentrate on the
yeah.
as well, but,
when you hear that, when you get a nasty crunching sound, you can see the ring and you can react.
Right. So what was that? So how do they swallow those? Swallow their rodents whole. I mean,
well,
basically, a big mouth, and they kind of like gulp it down. I'm sure if you have a quick look on YouTube, barn owl eating, you're bound to find some good footage of them like sort of woofing it down. And I'm hoping that some of the trail camera footage we'll pick up over the coming year, we'll potentially see them being fed whilst they're outside on the box even.
Yeah, so quite a lot of birds do that, kind of gulp things down, and we know that, did you talk about the pellets before? No?
We were going to have a look at them, weren't we? Yeah.
So they eat the animals whole, but they can't digest all the bones and the fur, so that's why they cough up these pellets. A number of birds do that. So
We could actually look at them quickly now, because you've
I'll
just
put
collected
you
a
in this
couple.
They absolutely stink.
So yeah, they are pretty smelly, and we're not wearing masks because of the smell. It's just part of the way we're doing this. So
Here's one that's kind of dissolved a bit. I'll show you a whole one so that you know what kind of size it is for size scale, because lots of birds have pellets, they're all different size. Barn ones are distinctively really dark. So long-eared owls also produce pellets, they're much grayer. So these ones are sometimes almost black actually. That one's a bit pale because it's pooed on it, but they're normally really dark. This one here, you can actually see a little skull in there. So that is possibly a little rat. That's quite big, isn't it? Look.
peel it open and
Yeah. So
it's fresh anyway, that's
there.
for sure. There you
Do
go.
you see
Let it
this
focus
little
there.
rodent
Yeah, there we
skull?
go. That's perfect.
And all the leg bones are in there too. So this was basically one meal probably. So yeah, that looks like that's probably a young rat. Quite
Funnily
big.
enough, some of the other washed out pellets that I picked up seem to be more rat-like actually,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
So that's maybe what they're feeding at around here. If there's a lot of young rats.
Which would, given the location of the estate that we're in, there's actually quite a lot of water in the area. So rats are never living, they always live fairly close to a water source. So that's really interesting to see. And we know that there's a huge amount of field and brown mice in the area. And hopefully there are some shrews in the area. I've yet to record them.
Yeah,
But,
which would be nice. There's a little leg bone if anyone's interested. It's a little
Brilliant.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Ruby, Daisy, hopefully that answers your questions. If you've got any others, yeah, please do ask. I'm going to take a chance to sort of bomb through some of the other questions here as well. Let's see. So some people have been Googling for us already. There we go. So a typical average lifespan of the wild is about 4 years. So max 7 or 8.
Yeah,
And on average in the wild, because 4 years, which because again I didn't know that myself actually, because this is one of the assumptions that you can end up making if you're not specialist in stuff, is that a lot of birds of prey will actually live for quite a long time. So we can actually hear buzzards around us here at the moment, and they certainly live a fair long length of time, and the bigger birds of prey again will be into 10, 15, 20 years in some cases. So yeah, obviously I'm getting through your comments, everyone. People are saying they're gonna keep an eye out for pellets now.
Yes.
which is brilliant.
Yeah, so the three main signs we talk about for barn owls, one of them's pellets, the second are the feathers, so they're really, really distinctive, and then the third is whitewash. So if they're in a tree, you'll see kind of like a splatter, which is basically bird poo, but it looks like you've kind of flicked a white paintbrush. So there are three main signs to look for. And the bird itself, obviously.
So Jane's just commented when we were there just taking a close up of the chicks while it's raining, that they seem quite content. And we were actually just talking before we started the live stream about a recent study that looked at what seems like a certain amount of complacency from bird species around human activity, and then when they actually were looking at the heart rate and monitors of those bird species, actually it's through the roof. So that's why I was saying earlier on that the birds come first here, and that we're only taking a close look very quickly at certain things, and then we're backing off while they do the ringing.
I mean, they definitely, because they're a nocturnal species at this time, like they were asleep, so they definitely are more chilled than some birds that would be kind of active now. And obviously if we came at the night, we wouldn't do that for a start, but that would be a totally different thing. And yes, we are trying to eliminate stress. They don't seem too bad. There'll be a small bit of stress obviously encountered with this, but that's it. Once we put them back, we'll leave them. They'll be in peace.
And that's why it's important. So to minimise the movement up and down all the time, we've brought them all down and keeping them held in the box there. So it basically feels like they're still in the nest box themselves. Jane was also saying there wasn't expecting them to be so big. And I'd say it's all fluff and feathers.
Yeah.
They're actually, like, their actual frame is quite small. If you have a look at some of the earlier videos and inspections from the boxes, you'll see that before they develop a lot of their feathers, they look like scrawny aliens, which is quite funny.
Yeah, bird chicks aren't normally that cute until, well, bird of prey and owls do look a bit funny, don't they? But they're getting cuter now.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously you guys can see that they're developing their adult feathers. So this is this the smallest one? You're
Yeah, this one's quite a bit behind the others.
Yeah. So
The little runt.
Yeah.
So you guys heard me earlier on. We were talking about the fact that barn owls will feed their strongest chicks first, and in times of lean times, basically the smaller chicks will potentially get eaten by the other chicks in some cases.
It's called Cain Abel conflict.
That's a good term.
Yeah.
Sounds like a film.
But the fact that this youngster, we could see when you showed me the footage from the camera a few weeks ago, we could see that there was one that was significantly smaller, but 3 weeks on, he's still there.
Yeah.
He's still doing okay. So I think he's probably got beyond that stage of the others gobbling him down, I suspect.
Yeah.
Keep going, little runt.
Yeah, so I think things are looking promising.
It's interesting having looked through a lot of the trail camera footage. Obviously, we don't put all of that up online because lots of it is actually pretty boring. It's just the adult birds going in and out very quickly, and then a lot of noise and squabbling. So they will squabble with each other as well. I mean, it would be lovely to be able to do an actual interior camera on one of these boxes at some point in the future, but
no chance of that.
But maybe we'll get there. Yeah.
Just see, Toby, with the ring. Each species has a ring specification. So as a ringer, you need to know what ring to put on what species. For barn owls, it's a G ring, and that ring size has been chosen after a lot of practice and experience by the ringing community. But the basic premise for a good ring fit is that it must slide up and down the tarsus freely. It shouldn't be catching the leg, and you can see that that's moving up and down nicely. It's also rotating nicely, but bear in mind this leg's got a little bit of growing to do, but the fact it's a G ring, it will still give it that latitude. And one thing as a ringer, a gauge of whether the chick is at the right stage or not is, will the ring go over the foot? Because that can happen on you. Well, there's absolutely no way that ring is going to go over that foot.
And just look at those talons now already. So you can see how they can just, when they're hunting, obviously they'll drop down on their prey. Yeah. Just grab them in a lock, and then off they go. So this is now getting clamped in place.
Do you see this big? One of them's slightly bigger than the others. This is one of Wee Man, if he's watching, his favourite wee facts. Yeah. So this top one actually will, when they land on something, will go through the skull of a rodent, so just to kill it instantly. So instead of kind of
which one?
That one, that one, I think, the first one.
That one, yeah.
So the biggest one, straight through.
Yeah, there's a difference on peregrines, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, hind claw can be the killer, I think, on peregrines. I think
I think this one, when they go down, because they're hunting in the dark.
Yeah.
And this is sawdust, by the way, so they're all cozy in there. In case you're wondering what that is.
So because obviously they might poop and they'll be sliding around in their poop, whereas up in their nest box they've got a nice layer of stuff already up in there. So we've added a bit of
so those pellets you saw basically line the box, and they are like a natural absorbent material. So they line the box, and when the birds pee and poo, then the pellets absorb that so that they stay kind of dry.
It stinks though, doesn't it?
It's really smelly. It's really strong, but not as bad as you would. It's not that bad. No. It's not as bad as some.
It's like everything, you get used to it after a while. That's fantastic. So this is the smallest of the 4 chicks, and it is also developing its adult plumage as well. Just started to see around the
distinctive
orbital
heart
feathers
shape as well. So they've got this heart-shaped face, and we were talking about the ears earlier, so that helps kind of take the sound in when they're hunting in the dark.
So people will probably recognise all owl species have that classic dish almost to their faces, and barn owl, each one is
The biggest chick, Toby, the primaries there's virtually no sheath left, it's almost fully grown. The primaries on the big chick, but you can see on this one, look, you've got half the feather is still in quill, so it's got a fair way to go.
Still going.
Yeah.
Little pet.
Yeah.
It's very spotty, this one. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just starting to develop its outer wing.
Colour, it's
Yeah.
fabulous.
You can see the waxy sheath on that primary there.
Is that the last one?
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
You're nearly going home, children.
So what happens now is obviously all the ring numbers have been taken. They've all been ringed there, and what will happen is they will just get repositioned and they'll get placed back up into the booth itself. I've already retrieved the camera that we have on there as well, and I'm hoping to reposition the camera to a new location so we can look straight at the box in the future. So hopefully over the coming weeks we might get the opportunity of seeing them start to come out and as part of their fledging, which will be super amazing. Sorry, Katie's just spotted a few discarded pellets. So what's probably happened here is the adults have been up in the trees, perched above us, and will have just coughed them up and dropped them out. So when they're older like this, you can see a lot of the fur and other bits have washed out, and you can really see all the bones of whatever the meal was. So there's the skull itself there, and you can see the front teeth of whatever rodent it was. Again, looks like a young rat again, which is really interesting. So these go off to the study at the moment, and they'll be analysed to see what they're eating, things like that. So this is an older pellet. So if you see any of these, collect them up, let us know. Anywhere, wherever you are and about, and they'll go off to the various students that are studying these at the moment. And you saw the other ones; they're a lot darker if they're fresh. That's really nice. I'll just add that to the others. Okay. So, get through your comments, guys. This has been really exciting. I've been loving bringing this one to you guys. Let's see. So Harold says, a good number of young shows that plenty of prey is available. Yeah, that is the key factor here in having a brood at 4. Say 1 or 2 is usually quite often indicating a pretty bad year, but there certainly seems to be plenty of rodents and plenty of food for the 4 to be all the way up to this age, which is brilliant. So I'm just going through your other questions. They're just doing the usual photography and getting the logs sorted before they go back up and in, and I'll just pick up some of your other questions. So we've got comments from some of the kids that are watching with their parents here. So Flynn, Mel says Flynn's actually my son, and he says he wants one. And so obviously falconers do captive breed barn owls for obviously education and things like that as well. But obviously these are wild barn owls, and they are wild animals, and we're doing this all under license. They're a heavily protected species, and so like I say, just I've emphasised earlier on, always make sure that you do not disturb the likes of these if you see them, and so on. And that goes for any young bird or nesting birds. It's they're protected. It's a wildlife crime to disturb a breeding or a nesting bird. So fire through some more questions, guys. I'm just working my way up through the others. Andrew asks, have I caught any of the owls hunting on the wildlife cameras? So they're very hard to capture on the trail cameras hunting. We've had them, obviously had the camera just up here looking at the nest, so we've seen them going in and out. I've seen the long-eared owls appear on our trail cameras before, and where I've had trail cameras looking at some of our red squirrel monitoring stations, what they'll do is they're quite often at night time, they'll sit on a branch nearby and drop down on the rodents that would be picking up the leave-ins from the squirrels below. I think on my Twitter feed, if you go and look back through and put in NT Ranger Toby long-eared owl, you'd probably find one of the clips actually back on my Twitter feed. Let's see. Everyone's saying they're fascinated. Okay, really important question from Aaron here. So what is classed as harassment of wildlife? So basically any form of disturbance that changes the natural behaviour, so that can be anything from proximity. So say there's a recent case literally just a couple of days ago where a number of long-eared owl chicks have been disturbed to the point that they basically weren't able to get fed and have ultimately died. And that's unfortunately some indiscriminate photographers just constantly badgering them. So it's really important that you if you see these things, that's fantastic, keep your distance. Katy, you might want to elaborate on this. We're just talking about what is classed as wildlife harassment, and effectively it's any form of disturbance that changes their natural behaviour. But we were just talking about a recent case this last few days of the long-eared owl chicks getting disturbed, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not good. And to be honest, the law actually with barn owls is that well, any bird, it's illegal to disturb any bird when they're nesting. The law with barn owls is actually from when they lay the first egg, but actually the research has shown that they are sensitive for a long time before that. So even if you're adhering to the law, you still shouldn't be disturbing birds. What you're doing here is very controlled and really minimal. And now, really, once they're rung here, once you put up your camera, we don't need to go up here again.
Yeah.
So that's it. And we're getting valuable information for this. But really, you've no need to be going up to birds' nests,
Including ones that are recently fledged and are just resting and perching.
100%, yeah. As like we were saying, sometimes birds can look like they're really chilled out, but actually birds can, like a lot of kind of small animals, can die quite suddenly from stress. So that kind of thing, there's no need, and there's a lot of very good photographers out there that spend a lot of time knowing where birds are and watching them from a distance, and that's totally fine, and you can still get excellent images by doing that, but there's no need to be waiting outside nests.
Because this was one of the things that we talked about in advance of doing this live stream, and that we wanted to make sure was very clear that, again, this is done all under license, and we're doing this because it's really important to show the processes involved. And I'll just okay, so we're just going to transfer the next one up, and of course these guys are trained and it's all under permission. But if you can imagine that if people were here constantly, every day, all hours of the day, then it's exactly the same as, like I said earlier on. You guys like your sleep at night. These guys need their sleep during the day. So that's why if you see these things, just walk on through. It's lovely the fact that we've got them here. And of course, if you've encountered these anywhere else as well, which is quite important.
Yeah,
so I'm going to pick up a few more questions.
Go on. Yeah. Sorry, one more thing. That funnily enough, barn owls are one of the birds that obviously it's different, like waiting outside a nest, but they actually aren't that susceptible to kind of noise. We think that barn owls would be very sensitive, but there's a lot of places, really interestingly, that they nest that you wouldn't think of, and the research kind of shows that they fear the unknown. So if there's a constant noise, they're not worried. So there is one instance of a barn owl nesting in a bell tower somewhere in Europe. The bell goes every time at the same time of the day, and they're right beside it, and they're not even bothered by it. So that's quite an interesting thing. But they don't like that kind of unknown disturbance. So but a lot of people will say, if I put up a nest box in my barn, it's right by my house, there's a working farm here, the birds won't use it, but that's actually not the case. So
Imelda's commented saying that there were a couple of barn owls living in a church steeple in Walthamstow. I'm going to say, how's that pronounced? Walthamstow?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry if we're not pronouncing that right. Which was left intact when the church was demolished. So that's a really good example of where a habitat has been saved, which is a really important one.
They like big old churches. That's one of their key habitats in England, actually. They love a big church steeple.
There you go. So I'll just going through some of the other questions and comments as well, because this is brilliant. Everyone's getting involved. So eye colour isn't entirely correct, as long-eared owls have orange eyes and they hunt almost exclusively at night. So we're talking about the eye colours.
Yes, I got it wrong.
There you go. Thank you, Aaron.
But sorry, the orange is more. They do hunt mostly at night, but it's shows that they are more crepuscular, so they do hunt at dusk and dawn more than a barn owl,
There we go.
I suppose. But yeah,
It's great having fact checkers as
thank you.
So yeah, thank you everybody for getting involved. They're just being taken up one by one at the moment. Barbara is asking, this is a really interesting comment, because again there's a few myths around birds being touched and parents rejecting them. So Barbara asked, like, do adult birds not reject them after you touch them?
No. So I mean, birds don't really smell very well. So that's one of the things that that is, I suppose, a misconception, that people will think that people will abandon them, but obviously we don't recommend people touching them.
Yeah, and so that goes for any like fresh fledgling, or what you think might be a chick that's fallen out of a nest, for example. Is the best thing you can do is basically leave them alone. Unless they are in immediate danger, so say there's a cat nearby or they're in the middle of a road.
Of course. If they're injured, of course.
Otherwise you leave them where they are, and that's the best thing you can do.
And I think that misconception probably comes from the reason they'll be abandoned is because of the disturbance, because there's people there. That's really the reason they'll be disturbed, not because they've been handled or because of smell or anything like that. So it's really, and of course, as humans, most people are pretty caring, and we think we want to help and do these things, but the best thing you can do is leave them alone. And the other thing in all this as well, and I quite often say this, and it may seem harsh, and you'll smile at when I say this, is nature is brutal. It really is. And in most cases, people ask, oh, you should, this injured animal or whatever, it's like, nope, we let it take its course. That injured animal will become food for another predator. So it may seem callous of people in this sector, like saying, no, actually just leave it, because that's part of nature. It is brutal. It's a difficult one, and as an ex-vet nurse, I looked after lots of wildlife, and in some cases, yes, we should rehab stuff and let it go again. But a lot of the time at this time of year, people bring fledglings and thinking they're injured, and unfortunately, they hang around for a while and they're being fed by parents, and they look like they're a bit useless and they can't fly, but actually they're just doing what they're doing and they're totally fine. So if things aren't in harm, then we really always say just to leave them alone. Yeah,
there you go. So actually it's interesting. Got obviously quite a lot of people watching and discussing the legalities around things on the comments here, which is brilliant. So I mean, the best thing is, like, if in doubt on anything, just leave them alone. That's when it comes to anything that sort of stuff.
So again, we have licenses for this. It's a Schedule 1 bird. It's as well, so they know exactly what we've been doing. We're all doing the right thing.
So the other absolutely interesting, because yesterday I put out a video of the fox trotting just behind with a rabbit kill, and she's asking, do foxes try to eat them sometimes? But actually they're scavengers.
Yeah, they just lazy as well.
Yeah, they hop around on the fields, pick worms, pick beetles and things like that. Yeah. I'm going to step back over this side. I'll tell you why, because the signal is slightly better over here. Because for regular viewers of the live streams know that signal has always been a bit of a challenge, and there are total dead zones in the estate sometimes. And I think one of the comments, it was probably from Andrew previously, was like, basically the live stream turns into like an 80s music video. So so just pick up a few of the others. Charmaine says, please don't stop the Tuesday videos. We are all back to normal, but we've been learning so much. I'm definitely not stopping them, don't worry. And my general manager has basically given the go-ahead to make sure that we're still doing at least one a month of these live streams, whatever subject that might be. And of course, I'm sure there'll be returns to the red squirrel hide as well, because that's always been quite good for the live streams. There's some fantastic comments and questions here, which is brilliant.
The barn owls are away to bed.
There we go, the barn owls are away, so we're just going to step on back and we'll get through the rest of the questions here, just to sort of finish up the stream. But guys, I mean, this has been a fantastic opportunity to go through these. So Katy, everyone's congratulating everybody, saying good job, guys. So Irene asks, will the parents be observing from what's happening nearby? They'll be asleep.
The chicks are really big. They're not bothered about them anymore. No, we're joking. They're still feeding them, but no, they'll be asleep. They won't know what's going on. To be honest, that's it. They would have been here a lot. They would have been sitting in the same box as these chicks up until fairly recently. But now they're really big. They're totally fine. They won't even know. The adults will come back and start feeding them as when it starts to get dark.
Yeah, I mean it's probably one of the easier bird species to gather data on because of that fact that they are sleepy during the day, and the fact that the part of the growing up process is they do get left alone in their box. But just to emphasise again, you know, data is like half of all of the sort of the proverbial battle for recovering and restoring a lot of the ecological processes, recovering populations of species out there. And you know, if you don't know what's happening, then how can you make a decision about how to, you know, change a land use, for example, or whether to do one thing or another? Or, you know, I mean, a brilliant example right here, the neighbouring field. It's in barley rotation, and on all of our barley fields this year, we've added a 2-metre beetle plantation screen. So this fresher sow in here will be basically species-rich, beetle-friendly plants that have been sowed into it as a corridor and a buffer zone into the main crop, for the benefit of birds, other mammals that are hunting, and of course it also benefits the crop as well, because it means there's more of those good predatory beetles that will prey on any of the problem species. So, you know, it's a really good example of making sure farming practices are sustainable and work with nature, because actually nature can do most of the jobs for us.
Yeah, I know. And if you have things like invertebrates, you'll have small mammals, you'll have small birds, and in turn then you'll have predatory birds like barn owls. So, you know, we need it all, really. But yeah, I mean, it's a great little spot for them, and hopefully they'll keep coming back here every year.
Yeah,
Which would be fab.
Guys, if you've got any more burning questions, fire them in quickly, and we'll probably answer them in text form on the comments. But
leave these chicks to
yeah,
sleep here.
we're gonna head off now. So the guys are just packing up everything. This has been a fantastic opportunity to share with you guys, and obviously really great to have a partnership organisation with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. So get the branding in there.
Ulster Wildlife.
There you
hello.
go. And of course, you know, this was 3 different teams. Yes, we've got Ulster Wildlife, we've got myself as the area ranger here at Mount Stewart, and then Hugh and Jim are working with the Strangford team at cover Nash Trust Strangford all around the area here. So this has been a really good day to be able to do this, and it's always nice to sort of talk shop as well. Yeah. So yeah, you know, it's been fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and I hope this has been an awesome insight into everything. Fire through any questions you have, and we'll try and answer them in the comments after we end the live stream when we get back to base. We'll be continuing the live streams. I haven't set another date yet, but roughly every month. I'm about to go off on leave for a little while because I am knackered. I haven't had a proper day off in, well, 11 weeks now, with everything that's been going on, and I also want to reflect on something about obviously the impending redundancies that a lot of our environmental organisations are facing at the moment. So I'm going to leave a closing comment, which is basically, if you're not a member of any of our organisations, join. Please do.
Yes, please.
You guys make this work happen and make sure that these things are here forever for everyone, and these places are in improving condition, because when we started here at Mount Stewart, it wasn't the best of conditions for wildlife, and 5 years on, we've had so many great successes. Red squirrels are recovering, barn owls are recovering, we've got pine martins, and of course all of the smaller stuff, and I won't go into too much detail because I go on all the time about moss and other things. I will say deadwood. There's lots more deadwood.
Yes, yay for deadwood.
So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you on the next live stream, and we'll make sure we get some of the trail camera footage out over the coming weeks of what's been happening.
Thanks,
so cheers.
guys. Bye.